This is the 1400 hours GMT bulletin of the Khoodeelaar television channel midday update. The main topic is the state of the 3-year-old toddler who fell from 8th floor of a building on the East India Dock Road opposite the All Saints DLR station in Poplar, East London, on Monday, the 27th of July 2020. I have been to speak to the Tower Hamlets Council press office or media office, asking them why they have not published a real comment or statement about the state of the building, because many of the residents, after the fall yesterday of the 3-year-old toddler, said that the windows on the building are too wide, and if not shut properly and watched carefully by the adults, children, toddlers can climb out of the flats. Now, this is not to say that this is what happened yesterday to this 3-year-old toddler, but this is one of the easiest things to do for children from that building, which means that the council, as the local building safety regulator authority, should have been aware of the building, because the building has been in there for many years. And what this shows is that there are literally dozens of buildings across Tower Hamlets that need to be safety checked, which they haven't been. If they were, this would not have happened. If this is the case, indeed, and the residents would not have made the comments that they have made so far, reportedly. And this is the latest issue concerning Tower Hamlets Council's failure to maintain safety of buildings and structures regime properly, to the standard that the residents and people using the building are not under any risk. This child, if it survives, it's a boy, apparently, according to the police. If this child survives, it would be a miracle, because the child fell 8th floor down on the main road, concrete road. And so he's in the critical care unit in a hospital, and we hope that this child survives. This comes only weeks after June Hereby, the 85-year-old woman in Bow E3, was killed by a falling crane that crashed onto her house and onto another house on the 8th of July, 8th of this month. That is 19 days previously. And before that, a woman called Kylie Bohr, in her early 30s, was killed by falling bricks in the Badet Road. Miss Bohr had just got engaged to get married and had left her child at a school nearby when the falling bricks fell on her, and she later died in hospital not long after the incident. Now, that building was being constructed by one of the companies that Tower Hamlets Council gave planning permission to, just like the building in Bow E3, which had this 10-year-old crane installed and killed this Miss June Herby on the 8th of July. Now, the incidents happen in the very kind of close proximity to one another. And not far from the Burdett Road, in 2015, probably in July, it seems that July seems to be the month when Tower Hamlets Council's building structures come, deadly building structures come falling onto people and children. This was a 5-year-old child, Alexis. She died because the swing she was playing on had timber that was full of multiplicity of various fungi. This was according to the evidence given by an expert on trees. And this case so far ended without Hamlets Council being prosecuted for the death of this 5-year-old child who was killed a day before her 6th birthday in July 2015. Now, so there are 4 cases, but there are other cases where structures are faulty and structures are not being inspected by the Hamlets Council and people are at risk. This is the kind of narrative that has been found to be very much in the main discussions about buildings after the massacre of the people on the Grenfell Tower in 2017, in June 2017. And again, no person has been found so far guilty of that massacre. And we call it massacre because there were so many opportunities to save most of the people, and the opportunities were missed or neglected or overlooked by the local council, Kensington and Chelsea. And so, what we are talking about in Tower Hamlets, in light of yesterday's fall of the 3-year-old toddler on the East India Dock Road, is that we tried to get the Tower Hamlets Council to explain what their position was. And I was told about 1.5 hours ago, or just under 80 minutes or so ago, that I should ask the police. Now, I called the Tower Hamlets Council not about a criminal matter, but as a building safety matter. It's negligence toward civil matter, and it's a legal duty of the Tower Hamlets Council to make sure that the building structures are safely maintained. So there is no inspection to speak of buildings that might have loopholes and risk the lives and safety of children, especially like this toddler. So this is the council that we have been talking about for the last many, many years, especially the council that colluded with Crossrail, and the Crossrail was going to completely degenerate the entire area from Brick Lane to Whitechapel. And because of our campaign, that degeneration and displacement and dislocation was averted and prevented. But the agenda of displacing the local community with the collusion of the local Tower Hamlets Council, which is supposed to protect the community, has gone on in other ways, especially in raising high-rise buildings. And the Tower Hamlets Council has been giving planning permission to all these degenerating contractors and the people who want to make profit out of the desperate situation they add to by adding to the lack of housing, lack of homes, and lack of affordable facilities for local communities and individuals and persons in need of a home. Now they say affordable. Affordable is only applicable if the person concerned has enough money to buy their way into housing. So the social housing is the answer, and that is the main area of degeneration attacks carried out through Tower Hamlets Council. And it doesn't it doesn't actually end with the toddler and the risk that the toddler was put at by Townless Council negligence, because thousands, literally thousands of properties, council buildings, homes, were literally given away to Harka, Popla Harka, which is situated only probably about 100 yards from the site of these toddlers' fall yesterday evening. So the Popla Harka was given, thousands of properties given away, thousands of properties by Tower Hamlets Council. The council properties were given away to Popla Harka about 12, 13, 14 years ago. And as a result of that, to that extent, thousands of homes have been taken away from availability list. And the list of council housing being shortened by the day is going on, has been going on for the last 12, 13, 14 years. And so therefore the Townless Council has a lot to answer for, but it is not answering. And the reason why it is not answering is because it is not under any democratic demand by elected holders of the positions as councillors for the various wards in Tower Hamlets. This risk that this building has been in the East India Dock Road, from which this particular infant fell yesterday, has been known to the councillors, but they are not making any attempt to hold the council administration to account. And that is connected with the fact that the council is overrun by a dictatorial regime in the form of a elected mayor. So these are all connected. Safety of the community, safety of the individual, safety of the children in the building, in the playgrounds. This safety is a paramount issue that is being neglected by the Hamlets, the local council. And as if that was not bad enough as a preview of what is going to come in the later editions at full-length versions, the Secretary of State for Housing, the Ministry of Housing, Robert Jenrick, who gave the permission to the porn billionaire Dirty Desmond to build expensive homes in Tower Hamlets in an area called West Ferry Road. He has been defending his decision to violate the local planning authority. Now, Tower Hamlets Council has been already a pliant planning authority, colluding with big business degenerators. But it made a token point of resistance against the particular stage of Richard Desmond's planning application, because it wanted to make a quick profit for itself in the name of community benefit. That is one of the very loosely available options for local planning authorities when they grant or consider giving the grant of planning permission to degenerators. But Jenrick has not only defended his collusion and bribery relationship with Dirty Desmond, the bribery relationship, I have to emphasize, concerned, according to all records, the donation to the Conservative Party as opposed to Robert Jenrick himself personally. But all of this is in comparison with the actual bulk of the responsibility being neglected by Tower Hamlets Council, and by extrapolation by similar councils across the country, across London. All this pales into insignificance because literally hundreds of billions pounds worth of properties are being grabbed hold of by the speculators, by degenerators who are using as stooges their local planning authorities, that is the local councils. Most of the councils in London are either controlled by the Labour Party or sort of Labour Party. That is to say that some of them are affiliated with a significant number of membership on the councils by the Liberal Democrats. And so therefore, what we are faced with in London, in England, about the duties of the councils is that they haven't got any teeth at all. Even if the teeth they had, they don't have any evidence. They have not shown any evidence of really asserting the teeth and holding the degenerators to account for the sake of safety, actual safety of the communities and the rights of the communities in their boroughs on housing and other services. Genrick has now promoted an agenda that will mean that he will abolish most of the existing fragile and tokenistic building controls exercisable by the local councils. And this has been greeted by Murdoch by allowing space to the likes of Jeremy Clarkson. Now, suffice to say that Clarkson is one of the most notorious right-wing, antisocial agitators against society. And so therefore he is greeting Robert Jenrick, and he's greeting him as a hero. He's saying that Jenrick abolishing planning control would miraculously overnight solve the housing crisis. Now that is just in the mode of Boris Johnson or Donald Trump. It is absolutely unrelated to reality and a million miles from the truth of what is happening on the ground. But the bottom line is that Jenrick, being an MP, should have been facing questions from two of the Tower Hamlets Council currently elected MPs in the House of Commons or through the House of Commons if the communications are still done mainly remotely because of the lockdown. But there is no evidence that the two Tower Hamlets MPs have held Robert Jenrick to account, nor indeed have they shown any concern for the safety of the residents and the people living in the buildings or passing by in Tower Hamlets. And as I said before, in a previous edition of the KhoodeelaarTV test bulletin, that the newest MP, Afsana Begum, issued a statement that was only accessible via the Communist Party Morning Star online, in which she expressed her interest in working with trade unions after the Bow E3 crane collapse that killed June Harvey. Now, the trade unions are not in existence to do the job for which the council employees are in paid post. Trade unions are in existence as relationship with the council as the employer. Now, there is no evidence that there was any factor or issue concerning the fall of the crane involved in the 8th of July deadly collapse. And I have not noticed anything since that statement from Afsana Begum, and most certainly nothing from Rushna Ali. And so therefore the question is, the elected councillors are not doing anything, the elected MPs are not doing anything, and the token GLA member Unmesh Desai is incapable of doing anything. He makes a list of claims that he has attended this, he has attended that, he has spoken about that. Now, this does not constitute democratically representing the electors or the constituencies. So, but that is what Unmesh Desai does. That is what Stephen Timms does. That is exactly what Lane Brown does, and that is what these two MPs in Tower Hamlets have been doing, Rushnara Ali and Afsana Begum. They make a list of who they are talking to. These things do not constitute holding the executive or the decision makers to account whatsoever. And so therefore we have to conclude that the council is dysfunctional, the electors are dysfunctional, the electors are being misrepresented by an image of democracy by elected councillors who are actually silent and playing silent role in exchange for their being given little bits of benefits and preferments here and there. Preferments is the word that was brought into circulation during Margaret Thatcher's regime in the UK, preferments, where she was corrupting her kind of acolytes and supporters by giving them preferments. And this Sunday's, not yesterday, but the Sunday before, the Sunday Times published a piece by Rosamund Irwin praising the former BBC Today program presenter John Humphreys. And the praise was actually intended to show him as a supporter of the anti-Brexit kind of steamroller that has afflicted this society. And the rest of it was absolute spin for Humphreys. John Humphreys did not achieve any remarkable journalistic feat during decades of his employment at the BBC. So this post facto, after the retirement, kind of reference to him as a person who appreciated the wisdom of staying in the in the EU, is totally fatuous and pointless. And the reason why that fatuous and pointless piece has been allowed is because the other bits that he's talking about fit in with the general shambolic agenda in the editorial office of the Sunday Times, because it compares Boris Johnson unfavorably with Margaret Thatcher. Humphreys praises Margaret Thatcher while he undermines or belittles Boris Johnson, which is not a big difficulty to achieve, but that is what happened. But the reason why he says that Margaret Thatcher was awesome is ridiculous, because he says that when he asked her the question about Christianity, her answer was that it gave choice. Christianity is not about choice, it's about justice, according to the SPI. So if she was talking about choice, then she was not talking about Christianity. She was talking about the power wielders and those who have against the have-nots. And Rosamund Irwin did not probe that tale told to her by John Humphreys. So we have to look at the dearth of intelligent discourse in the British mainstream. And that dearth is absolutely contemptuous. The dearth filled by rubbish statements by the likes of Jeremy Clarkson, who actually promoting the beleaguered Robert Jenrick as the savior of the housing crisis. Now, he is the one that has been caught in so many abuses of power over planning that to list the incidents will take up the whole program. Suffice to say that there is no commensurate, comparable, or equally measured kind of matching commentary from the so-called opposition shadow minister for housing and local government, and it is Thangam Debonair, the MP for Bristol West. She is silent as well. And there is nothing from the environmentally friendly MP Caroline Lucas, and most certainly nothing from the Lib Dems. And so what we have is a continuing persistence of emptiness, politically, democratically, ethically, morally, in this society. And all of these are present in excessive amount and volume, and to the detriment of the community in the London borough of Tower Hamlets, and of course in the next door borough of Newham, and in the next door boroughs of Hackney, Waltham Forest, and across the river, Southwark and Lambeth, and so on. So we are left with no democratic metropolis in the time of the pandemic. There is a regime in pandemonium which is issuing contradictory directives and regulations and guidance every single day. And this week, the so-called Secretary of State for Transport, Grant Shapps, has been exposed as having flown to Spain the day after he introduced the controversial so-called quarantine regulation that has upset the Spanish and the British holidaymakers. Now, let's look at this. It's Brexit is to stay out of Britain, keep Britain out of the EU, and the European member countries were so bad and so unacceptable to the Brits, to the grassroots of the Brexit supporters. How come that they are now absolutely disgusted by the fact that there is a rule, regulation barring them from going to Europe on holidays? Why do they want to go to Europe on holidays? How did they decide when they were arguing against the EU countries like the Spanish, like the French, and other destinations that they go to? How were they arguing that by having Brexit, they will get rid of the need, the urge, the craving for going to holidays? So that's one of the moral absurdities that typifies and identifies those who support the current regime in Britain, which is the Brexiteering regime, and which actually is so negligent of the safety of the people that it allowed the Grenfell Tower massacre to go ahead despite years of warning about safety and other building safety related issues that residents and other local campaigners were raising for many, many years. And the Labour Party, despite the fact that later on, after the massacre, woke up, it never really raised the issue in any memorable, significant way in the House of Commons or House of Peers. So for this afternoon's edition, we shall be stopping here at 14:26 hours GMT or 14:28 hours GMT, 15:26 to 15:28 hours UK time on Tuesday, the 28th of July, 2020.